We had a Scots Christmas. He was showing us his favourite horror films. Some of them were good, actually. They're British.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I only read the first volume.
Yeah, it is a bit long. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. We'll do volume two next month or some future month. And I'm sure it was a busy week for everybody.
Oh, well, this image has a bit of colour in it. I think colour would have been an improvement myself, but
Yeah. It's kind of cost prohibitive to color manga because there's so many pages.
these were days when my heart was volcanic, as the scoric rivers that roll, as the lavas that restlessly roll, their sulphurous currents down yank your neck. In the ultimate climbs of the pole that groan as they roll down Mount Yanek in the realms of the boreal pole. Edgar Allan Poe. Okay. So he visited the volcano once, did he?
Hmm.
The darkness had materially increased, relieved only by the glare of the water thrown back from the white curtain before us. Many gigantic and pallidly white birds flew continuously now from beyond the veil, and their scream was the eternal Takalele as they retreated from our vision. Oh, well, another Edgar Allan Poe, Nantucket. Oh, okay, the whaling ship. Mountains of Madness is one of Lovecraft's few long form stories. It was unmistakably inspired by his old idol, the great author Edgar Allan Poe. The narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of the Nantucket was written in 1838. Okay. Now, this was a book, or this was a story that was imitated to create Who Goes There, which became the thing. Of course, the trouble with Lovecraft is some almost catatonic schizo, and his grip on normal life just wasn't quite there. And so, in a sense, his stories miss the more common side of humanity. Okay, so this guy is doing, he's got very nice backgrounds, but the human figures, although they're proportionally very nice, just wander around with continuous look of astonishment. And you sort of find that annoying. Okay, so this is what is it? The Miskatonic Antarctic Expedition. I suppose the name sums it up. Maybe he knew he was catatonic.
We've seen that name before.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't really look at it closely. Okay, this is sort of prelude, is it, or somebody else's expedition? Well, it's very, very, the imagery sort of reminds you a bit of the thing, wandering around Antarctica, wandering into aliens. Okay, the those eyes that you just can't forget, eyes that have seen too much. So this is a sort of foretelling what comes later in the comic when they discover the activities. I forgot actually. I forgot actually about reading right to left for a while.
I even warned you.
Yeah, I know. I sort of slipped my mind. It is, however, true that the greatest part of the southern continent, supposing there is one, must lay within the polar circle, where the sea is so pestered with ice that the land is thereby inaccessible. The risk one runs in exploring a coast in these unknown and icy seas is so very great that I can be bold to say that no man shall ever venture farther than I have done, and that the lands which may lie to the south will never be explored. Thick fogs, snowstorms, intense cold, and every other thing that can render navigation dangerous. One has to encounter, and these difficulties are greatly highlighted by the inexpressible horrid aspect of a country doomed by nature, never wants to feel the warmth of the sun's rays, but to lie ever buried under an everlasting snow and ice. Whoever has resolution and perseverance to clear up this point by proceeding farther than I have done, I shall not envy him the honour of the discovery, but I will be bold to say that the worlds will not be benefited by it. From the journals of Captain James Cook, 1775. Famously, uh, Vancouver climbed out on the bowsprit to be the man that went further south before they turned around. Okay, looking very Scott of the Antarctic. Okay. So, what do you think of the anatomies he's drawing, Dave? Like, have you seen any of his other manga works?
Yeah, I think this is the third of his we've done so far. Right. The one with the fish people and Call of Cthulhu.
Okay, the Arkham. So they've renamed a whaler that was built in the 1880s or 1890s. Uh, which they've put the latest trimotors into aircraft to fly over Antarctica. Well, they're seeing them off, and there's a complete absence of women as usual with Lovecraft. So the other one was called the Miskatonic and the Arkham. They do have some. He did have some women in this one. Excellent. Seeing them off.
Background characters with no lines.
Yeah, I have a slight passion for ships, so I can sort of easily recognise what sort of boats they are.
My grandfather loved watching penguin videos.
Penguin videos. Oh, wow.
He loved
Okay.
penguins. They're fun to watch.
That's Erebus, okay, the mountain, which is near one of the bases. It was a New Zealand base or something like that. But there was no permanent bases in Antarctica, I think, until after World War II, and then there was a sudden race to get there. I mean, everybody's looking so deadly serious all the time. Okay, they're doing taking calls, so they've got a bit of equipment there. Okay, drop some dynamite in. Okay. Apparently, the artist is a huge fan of Lovecraft.
You would have to be to spend this much time adapting so many of his stories. Labor of love, as they say.
They've created a map. So they got specimens there. There is no metamorphic formation from strata pressure. It is an organism of considerably advanced evolution, and it does not fit into any classification I know. This is an absolutely a heretofore unknown life form. So they've assembled these trimotors. I remember in another comic they were actually using an earlier aircraft, an aircraft sort of more post-war trimotors, I think, were disappearing around the time this is set in 1930 or something like that. Okay, they see a mirage of the lost city, which turns out to be real at some point. We've got to turn around. That's what I mean. You know, there's just nothing average happening on the faces. It's all astonishment. How are the dogs looking? Well, hey, that dog's starting to look a bit crazy, if you ask me. That one there. Okay, they've lost the sled and the dog. It's all in a day's work. Well, I wanted to find out what Lovecraft was all about after hearing about him from a few people, and I guess I know now, and I don't have to go much further.
I'll leave that to you. I will say of all the things that I've found, we're past the halfway mark. I'll say that.
Okay, what do you think of that crazy look?
Hmm.
It's a fitting Antarctic face, is it? It's very mask-like. Yeah, I mean, it's anatomically not bad. There's a funny thing here. The faces here tend to be very Nordic looking. So the artist has picked on Nordic features for some reason without much variety. For example, most of the population of Britain, I think, is still a variety of Mediterranean. And various Nordics, like the Celts and the other Nordics, invaded from time to time. But the original population of Britain was Iberian in origin. So weirdly, this is supposed to be a British population without people with more Mediterranean features, you know, more or less very much the heavy Nordic features. Yeah, it's yeah, he's got, certainly, very talented artwork, but the imagery just doesn't really reach out. Like, you can get the most cornball comic book from the 1970s and it's not perfect, but the imagery will reach out to you, like the Conan the Barbarian comics we're doing.
Yeah.
There's a flatness about this imagery, which isn't the greatest for comics. But
Mm.
you're saying that color would have made a difference, but you're saying color is just very expensive for this sort of work, is it?
Well, I mean, just given the sheer page count, but there have been some manga that's been colored.
Well, okay, so uh, black and white, of course, only needs 1 unit to print it. And it's a lot easier to just run 1 unit. And the results are going to be good without much checking. Okay, they've ran across the aliens. Now, I can't figure out, these aliens have been sitting there for how many millions of years and they still smell. They would have turned the stone. Okay, see more of the crazy alien stuff. 4 feet long. The musculature is evident even when shifted. So they're moving these forms around beyond my understanding. Look like uh, look like the creatures out of the Day of the Triffids film, the original black and white from the 50s. Okay, they're taking out all the alien forms, laying them outside. Keep the dogs away from them. Easy now. What's got them so riled up? The scent, I reckon. Where's Professor Lake? In the lab tent. He's already began dissection.
That was obviously right to left
Hmm?
reading order. Right to left reading order.
It was no good. The flesh too tough for fine cutting. Clawing the tissue made no difference. Hacking away would risk damage to the internal organs. This one was already mangled in some past rockfall, perhaps. Come on, help me get it into the tent. But it was possible to probe through its existing wounds. The tissue had many plant-like characteristics, yet triffids. Yet the functionality of the creature was more animal in nature. Digestion, circulation, apparent gills and pores suggested an amphibian rather than a purely aquatic being. Though excessively primitive and archaic in some respects, the nerve tissue was extremely complex and highly developed. A 5 lobes brain with obvious traces of sensory organs, an organism of such size that walked and swam and flew, but left prints in rocks far older than any fish, bird, or mammal. Perhaps it is not our understanding of evolution on Earth that is incorrect, that this organism did not undergo its evolution on Earth. Okay, they're covering up the matter. Lake's report arrived around 12 a.m. The Antarctic midnight sun still bright. Okay, they're going to get out to the expedition again. So they're going to go from their base near the ship and make it to the expedition, which discovered the creatures. Must have gone through National Geographics for this or something like that.
Possibly.
I think I picked up an error. There was a mountain they said was named after Nansen. They're claiming it was a Norwegian expedition that gave it the name, but it seems to have been a British expedition which actually names Mount Nansen. I don't know what your chances would be in a tri-motor flying around Antarctica. It wasn't done until after World War II, probably when they had much better aircraft. Okay, they found tracks. Okay, they're finding what's left of Professor Lake's crew. They're dead. They were not merely dead. The dogs, the men, all had been smashed and torn. That body intact. Lake. Okay, 8 bodies thus far. His cheek and the hole in his forehead, it looks bored. What could possibly have happened to them? Sir, hold it together, man. Okay, they find the skeletons with all the flesh removed. So some aliens have awoken and are investigating what these humans are. Well, see, there's a rather evocative image which rather resembles the finding of the saucer in The Thing. Okay, they buried the destroyed crew. Trying to jam up the cave. I fly to the Black Mountains. Right, I am not leaving Antarctica without answers. If the winds subside tomorrow, I fly to the Black Mountains. That must be some of his other work, I suppose, which is looks more like the conventional manga. Got a knife wielding thug with somebody's head, is it? Or no, it's a knife wielding thug taking somebody from behind.
Hmm.
Well, there's more convincing. Oh, that's not him, is it? This is somebody else's illustration.
Yeah, these are just ads for other Dark Horse manga publications.
How to read your manga at the end. Wouldn't it have been smarter to put it at the beginning? Or is that some sort of a joke?
Well, you see when it's published in a physical book, it's printed like a book, and if you are not familiar with manga, you would start where you think a book starts. And so by they putting this at the end, which for Westerners would be the beginning of the book, this is the first thing you see. And that tells you, no, flip the book over and start where you're not familiar, start at the back, and which is in fact the font. You see, if you're not from someone who's familiar with manga, this would be the first thing you see.
Oh, okay.
If you go the way you're used to as a Westerner, see.
But in his ordering, yeah, of course, this would have been on the back side of the book. But his ordering, if he's put it here, then
Yeah.
he
You
hasn't
don't get the
ordered.
same effect digitally, of course, because we're not looking at the physical copy of the book. But if you were somebody unfamiliar with how to read manga, that's what you would have done. And that page would tell you, stop, you're doing it wrong. Go the other direction.
Okay, from the artists of the Eisner nominated H.P. Lovecraft's The Hound and Other Stories.
Yeah, we haven't done that one yet.
1931, an expedition team arrives at a campsite in Antarctica to find its crew of men and sled dogs strewn and dead. Some are hideously mangled as if in rage. Some have been dissected in a curious bloods and cold-blooded manner. Some are missing. But a still more horrific sight is the star-shaped mound of snow nearby, for under its 5 points is a grave, and what lies beneath is not remotely human. At the Mountains of Madness is a journey into the core of Lovecraft's mythos, the deep caverns and even deeper time of the inhospitable continent where the secret history of our planet is preserved. Since it was first published in Outstanding Stories during the classic pulp era, At the Mountains of Madness has influenced both horror and science fiction worldwide.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, it depends. I guess it depends how mad you are for Lovecraft stories. If you like Lovecraft a lot, you might go for it. Oh, well, some messages from Tyler. Hi, it's my first time here. Are we supposed to have already read it? Are we reading here? Yeah, well, I'm just flashing through it here. That's quite a chin. They look pretty realistic to me, as if the faces have been, it's just the faces seem out of place. Some Italian bombers held onto it. Yeah, yeah, or I don't know which tri-motor that is. There were quite a few countries building tri-motors around 1930. Just that one character is drawn like that for some reason. Well, we've got Lovecraft, of course, had an outstanding chin. So maybe that's a reflection. Everybody is supposed to be Massachusetts here. Yeah, I think that's it. I know, Tyler, are you a Lovecraft fan, or is Justin a Lovecraft fan, or somewhat? Yeah. I had seen a few Lovecraft stories used in mystery shows, but they were heavily rewritten to suit a contemporary audience. Yeah, well, the Thing, Justin, was one of the really outstanding SF films, or at least the remake was. You reckon the movies don't age well? I think Lovecraft is aging with some difficulty because his fiction. Oh, right. Okay, yeah, the books. Yeah, that's true. Uh he was in a period that was in between the boy's own adventures of the 19th century with some updated technology, and it was still pretty much boy's own. He was still in the horror, of course. There was a slight crossover into science fiction, uh, but it was projected as a horror story always. So it just remained very 19th century. No. Yeah. I was just pointing out that the faces of the characters are very Germanic, which is weird because they're supposed to be British. And British have a much stronger Mediterranean element. So you tend to see less strong faces amongst the British than you would Germans. But then again, Lovecraft was supposed to have worshipped the Anglo-Saxons as the master race. So don't know what he thought of Germans.
Well, we could do volume two in January.
Yeah. I suppose we could finish off volume two. Yeah, could do
Yeah,
that.
I haven't posted January's list yet. So, all right. We're past the halfway mark, definitely, on Lovecraft.
Yeah, well, Europeans, sort of a mixture of three races. So you've got uh, the original group, which were hunter-gatherers, and they're the ones with the strong chins and strong bone structure. Then Mediterranean agriculturalists started moving into Europe about 5000 BC and dominated most of the continent, except pretty much the Baltic and parts of Russia. They never really penetrated as strongly into those areas, but they ended up becoming probably the dominant feature of European genome. And they came from what's Turkey now. And then the other group was the Indo-Europeans, who, oddly enough, the male haplotype isn't European, it's Turkic. It's related to the American Indians, for example, rather to what was the normal population of Europe. But must have been a Turkic featured people who kept on moving westward, and they must have stole that many European looking women that they started to look European looking, or started to look European. And they were aggressive, a bit like the Mongols, I suppose, and ended up dominating most of the continent. But the strong feature, the chins and all that come from the Aboriginal European, who was the huge athletic hunter-gatherer. And according to legend, not terribly bright. But I suppose an Asian artist has a fascination for those sorts of features because they're so different. Well, that's my spiel. I guess I can't say an enormous amount of Lovecraft on Lovecraft, except to say he had his own fandom. I do appreciate knowing a bit about him now.
Yeah, I mean, I came across something that said, what's the most adapted into comics possible? And someone was saying Sherlock Holmes. No, I don't think that's possible. I don't think that's true. I think Lovecraft beats him. Lovecraft is probably the most adapted into comics author possible.
Actually, that'd be an interesting one. Vril, the power of the coming race. That was uh 1870s stories, which sort of was the run up to Lovecraft somewhat. More actually, probably the run up to Edgar Rice Burroughs more than anybody else, I suppose. You ever heard of that one? Oh, I've got the book somewhere. I think it was an 1890 printing, and I ordered it. Eventually, it's very rare thing for me to actually order a book, but I ordered it through a booksellers, and eventually they found a copy. Uh,
Hmm. We start on Burroughs.
I did read his Venus series, which I was quite enchanted by at the time when I was about 14. Okay, this one just has the title Thrill. I wonder if they ever did a comic of it. You think they would actually? Somebody would have done it.
Well, I don't know off the top of my head that there's been a Grill adaptation, but there might be one out there somewhere.
Okay, there's one mention of an illustrated book. Thrill, the Power of the Coming Race Illustrated, a journey into a subterranean enlightenment, cosmic forces, and the utopian realm of the Vrilya, while exploring the nexus of science and spirituality. Uh,
There was a little bit of Grill in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but I'm sure.
oh yeah, well certainly that author would have been. Well, there's a Amazon illustration, but got the hair color wrong. The fabulous woman he runs across was supposed to be of a very noble looking Grecian appearance. So there was this underground civilization. Yes, Sir Edward Bulwer Lytton's, I think he was a member of Parliament or something in the English Parliament at some stage. Maybe he was getting into some of the arcane mysticism that was going on in the 19th century. The sort of stuff that fascinates Scott.
He blocked me. I'm not really sure why.
He blocks you.
He blocked me on
You don't-
Meetup. I'm not really sure why. I always had pleasant exchanges with him, but I don't know why.
I never know my luck. I might get blocked. He actually invited me to his Christmas meeting, but
Yeah. Well,
he seems to like me for some reason. Conservative Member of Parliament. In office in 1858. Born in 1803, so he wrote the book quite late in life. Political career, literary works. He wrote on a number of genres. Okay, right. Last Days of Pompeii is the famous title. The Pilgrims of the Rhine. The Last Roman Tribunes. Audio. Okay. He wrote many other works, including Vril, The Power of the Coming Race, 1871, which drew heavily on his interest in the occult and contributed to the early growth of the science fiction genre. Yeah, some would claim that Vril was yeah, probably the origin of the more mystical side of science fiction. Of course, you had Jules Verne, who was just preceding this, who was just hard science fiction, but this drew on far more mystical and sort of Hegelian ideas, I suppose. His term vril lent its name to the Bovril meat extract. Oh, wow. Well, if you want to get some vril, uh, that's right. The Nazis, there was sort of some occult group connected with the Nazis that believed in all of this sort of stuff too. Vril has been adopted by theosophists and occultists since the 1870s and become closely associated with the esoteric neo-Nazism. Oh, right, yeah. So they drew on that name for Iron Sky. I assume you've seen that movie, have you, David?
I have not actually, no.
Oh, well, the first one was pretty good, and then they tried to follow it up with a sequel, and the sequel was just very bland. But the first one was, I think you'd really appreciate the first one.
Yeah, I'm aware of those movies, yeah, but I haven't seen them. I'll be happy to put them on the schedule.
Okay. Well, so much for Buller Lytton. A hyphenated name. That's the coming race. They've all got hyphenated names.
Hmm.
This is merely what, so Coming Race Illustrated, right. Wonder if there's something on YouTube about it. Now, one of the movies we watched was From Beyond the Grave in 1974 with Scott yesterday.
Yeah, there's a fair number of Lovecraft movies, but I think very, very few of them are of any kind of quality whatsoever, as far as I know. I haven't seen any of them, so I don't know. I've just what I've heard. I don't think we'd want to start watching Lovecraft movies.
Oh, there is a YouTube.
Hello, folks. I hope you're having a great day.